Welcome to the second episode of The Fallen Fruit. We're The Fallen Fruit. I'm Catherine Urban.
I'm Stephanie Ginese.
Lynette Ramos.
And we're happy to be with you guys again. We're happy to be hanging out again. Our first episode went pretty well. We got some good feedback on that. And here we are.
Yeah, I think the first one went better than expected.
Yeah.
Like the feedback, I was super grateful.
So thank you everybody who took the time to comment or come up to us when you saw us out and give us some really good feedback that hopefully we can put into motion.
Yeah,
Keep
I
it
got
coming.
some really nice direct messages. People tuned in and it was nice. It was nice. And we want to create community. So, I mean, that's one of the main reasons why we're here, chatting together and sharing that with you all. So, yeah. So let's get into it. We are people who do not want to have casual small talk for too long for right now. I do that all day long.
Right.
At my day job. So, okay. So as women, we menstruate with the moon. And some women tend to menstruate on the new moon, some people on the full moon, and some people in between. And some people are just like all over the place.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily regular. So what about you?
So for me, I'm generally in alignment with the new moon, but it can fluctuate. So it can stay steady with the new moon mostly. Then it'll bounce to the full moon. And then just recently, I'm like somewhere, I don't want to say in the middle, but not in alignment with any of it. So sometimes I wonder if am I in chaos right now? Because I'm not in alignment. I'm not sure. So I'm actually curious to learn more about that. But yeah, that's my story.
I am more in sync with the new moon within a couple days. But usually it's the day before or the day of. Which is cool because the new moon a lot of times is about kind of resting, recharging, setting intentions, which I feel like I can do from my bed with a notebook and a candle. So you don't have to do anything too elaborate. So I'm me and my cramps are manifesting.
Yeah, that's kind of perfect because, like you said, it's a low energy time. It's a good time to reflect. And when you're feeling sensitive and PMSy, you don't want to do a whole lot. So it's kind of in alignment there. I have heard, one of my friends told me that women who menstruate on the new moon, you're ovulating at the full moon. So that's you're kind of taking on the archetype of the mother, because you can get pregnant a little bit easier at that time, according to Old Wives' Tale. But if you're if you're menstruating at the full moon, then that's kind of the priestess path in a way, because then you're kind of said to be less fertile when you're ovulating at the new moon, because it's not as high energy. So
I gotcha.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I fluctuate because, I've always wanted to have a family. So if I'm ovulating at the full moon, then I'm cool, maybe we can get pregnant. But then I get more and more creative projects and I'm no. So I was menstruating at the full moon, and then it kind of just switched to the new moon. So sometimes I'm a 6-week cycle, sometimes 4. But for me, it's it's never been regular. So
Yeah, I'm a mess at the new moon. I am just it's a tough time for me. Sometimes I just have to lay down and just segregate myself from people. It's a tough time for me, but this last one was good. So maybe I'm on the upswing.
Yeah, it's different every single time. My PMS is has a different personality every go around. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. At the new moon, I tend to be not wanting to do as much. I try not to plan as many activities for the new moon, just knowing that I'm not going to feel like doing more than I have to, really.
Just anticipating it. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
Yeah. So, when did you guys figure out that you were like different? Like, when did you figure out that you were kind of witchy, or, you know, in that vein of reality?
I think when I was younger, like at first I thought I was a vampire.
Ooh.
Because I used to bite the side of my cheek. I don't suggest this, please. Nobody bite your cheek to the point that it bleeds. But then I would like kind of like suck the blood out, and I was like, oh, I love the taste. This must mean I'm a vampire. And then like obviously I could go outside in the sun and I could eat garlic. So I was like, damn it. Like, I'm not. But I was always fascinated with just like feeling very other from a lot of people around me, or even like kids my age. So I think it was when I was younger, but I started getting, obviously, integrating my spiritual path more into my life as I became an adult, and as I became a mother and started realizing like the divinity within that and everyday life and how all those things coincide, and just like my own sort of awakening has led me back to remembering that like I am of here, but like my mindset is not that of maybe like, I don't know, common era. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah.
That's kind of how, like, I feel like for me, like the witchy priestess vibe came way later, but I feel like when I was younger, without knowing, I was like fighting that old school women should be kind of submissive and follow the rules. Like, I think I just rebelled against that, but really didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't trying to be. It was just like a natural thing. And I was just like emotionally like really strong and kind of, I could be like a tornado, like just really chill. And then if something pissed me off, I would just go nuts. And so I think it was my emotional self that kind of led me to healing, because I'm like, wow, like I need to like get this under control. You know what I mean? So like for me, it was way later. Like I think well into my, I would guess, 30s.
Mm-hmm. I'm hearing that your dark goddess was coming out.
What's that?
Makes sense.
And your emotional side. So the dark goddess tends to come out when she's emotional. Mm-hmm. And in astrology, the moon represents the emotional nature and our reflexive nature and how we behave when our basic needs aren't being met, when we're not feeling soothed. So that's really interesting.
Makes sense.
I think when I started like prioritizing my emotions too, like I wasn't trying to run from them or hide, like finding power in emotion. I think because I grew up finding power in like other ways that I guess now are considered like, oh, once you've had this awakening, like you're remembering the witch that you always were, or something like that. Like sexual power, I feel like I learned early on, but emotional power didn't come until later.
That's interesting because oftentimes the two are connected. Mm-hmm. And sometimes one gets in the way of another, which is interesting.
Probably. That was probably the case a lot of times, but.
What about you?
So it didn't all start making sense till later, but as a young child, I can remember making a lot of potions. I had a signature potion I would make called bird poop soup. and it was a bucket, and I kept it outside, and I would put like leaves and sticks, and it would rain in it, and it would like stink, and I would get real creative with this thing. And I made several versions of it. And I also loved to, my parents had a bathroom sink, and it had one of those things where you pull up and it plugs the drain. And I used to just put soap in there and just turn the water on, and the soap would just go everywhere. And I felt like I was concocting something crazy.
You were born like this.
Yeah. And then like later the hormones kicked in, and I got like real emo, and I bought my first astrology book and my first Wicca book when I was like 12 or 13. And got real moody like reading them. And it really resonated with me, and it was kind of always in the background. But yeah, I just always felt different. I always felt, as a child, I always felt like, well, actually, I was diagnosed with something called oppositional defiant disorder. Like, big deal.
I probably had that too.
Like,
What?
Yeah.
Tell me more about this.
It's basically a diagnosis of being like,
An asshole?
yeah, a defiant
Okay.
teen and like challenging authority. And
Well, yeah, I think I have this too.
Wait.
Like,
Wait, I've never heard of
yeah,
they just wanted to get me addicted to big pharma, you guys.
Yeah.
It didn't work. But long story short, I was like, wanted to be in charge.
Yeah.
Wanted to be in charge of myself. And that was like always a thing when I was younger.
Yeah.
And just kind of thinking like, no, you guys can't control me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was always like questioning things and being a badass, I
Yeah.
guess, when I was little.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. That's funny that, I mean, I think probably too, like our parents were just like, no, you're just an asshole. And
Yeah.
like, what you need is like a whooping.
Yeah.
You know, and yours were like, no, there's got to be something more.
Well, my parents didn't argue. They like stuffed everything down. Probably if they argued more, they'd still be together, according to my husband. But anyway, because his parents fought all the time. But anyway, yeah, at one point, my dad tried to get me exercised.
Really?
Interesting. Tell
Yeah.
us more.
Wow.
So-
I know, I'm like, ooh.
So do you know Marianne, she's, for all those people listening who aren't from Ohio, she's like a famous local, and her name's Marianne Winkowski, and she actually had a TV show based off of her called The Ghost Whisperer, starring Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Heard of it?
And basically Marianne can see ghosts, and she does house clearings, and sometimes ghosts, as explained to 13-year-old me, I was so into this. I was like, yes, it's real. But ghosts can attach themselves to houses, people, or objects because, in her words, ghosts don't have bodies, so they don't eat. So they need a way to get energy. So they will like attach to someone. And usually that person is kind of chaotic in energy, you know? So, or like a house that has like a lot of activity going on, a lot of emotion. And so anyway, I had like a little boy ghost following me, according to Marianne, and I believe it. She gave me a lot of details about him, when he died, where he was buried, this and that. And long story short, it just opened my eyes that this stuff that I've always felt is real is real. There is an energy besides what meets the eye. There is an afterlife. And it just, I'm grateful for my dad for doing that. And by the way, my dad is not like religious. He just was willing to do anything to wrangle me, basically, you know, get me to follow his rules and be an easy child. But I'm really grateful for that experience because it really planted a seed. And I just had a million more questions after that. And to answer one last question about that story, after she envisioned him walking into a light, and she like had like a coming to Jesus with me. Like she like showed me all these pictures, told me her whole story, and she told me how she clears, and she envisions a light and invites the spirit to walk into it. she explains that a lot of times spirits miss their chance to walk into the light because they want to stick around for family and all that. And I did feel a big sense of relief after she did that. I felt like a weight had been taken off my shoulders. So,
Wow.
yeah.
It's interesting. When I think I was in my early 30s, I went to someone who was within our family and our community that was like a healer. Her name was Doña Riqueta. She's like one of my, like, she's passed on, but to me, she's priestess in the flesh. Like when you see someone like that, my dad went in with crutches and left without them, just to give you an example.
Whoa.
But she told me that there was a man who had passed on that attached himself to me, that was in love with me, and that was creating friction with people who got close to me. So I would either push them away or create some sort of issue. And
Whoa.
so I don't know, I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I had no idea. And so he might still be here. He might still be wreaking havoc. I might need to go get that looked at.
Right.
But anyway, that's interesting because, yeah, that story resonates.
Yeah.
How about you? Any ghosts attached to you?
So I have this story. So my cousin, actually, she's 2 years older than me. We grew up very close together. We would stay at our grandparents while our moms went to work. But anyway, one day she kind of went under, and I have this memory, but it's one of those things where you're like, is this a real memory? Is this a dream? I was a kid. Like, did I just imagine stuff? But it was a little boy. She was like laid out, like dead, not breathing. But I remember my grandma, her mom, my mom, like kind of around her, like praying in Spanish, just like low whispers, and me just sort of being like confused and like, what is going on? And then eventually she wakes up and like breathes and opens her eyes, and everybody kind of like, finally like breathes again, and they're like there and giving her hugs, and she's talking about a little boy who was leading her to the light.
Oh
and
my gosh.
Like, she was like, he wanted me to go with him, but I told him I wasn't ready, and this whole thing. And then I have another memory about a little boy who got in a car accident and was like thrown through a windshield, and I just remember his spirit. I remember the story very vividly. Like, I can see it. I can see the rain and like the color on the pavement, and it's just so vivid. But yeah, that little boy is kind of always like, that's one of those memories that's stuck with me. So I don't know who he is.
Wow.
Or if he's the same little boy, or
Whoa.
I don't know.
This is something that you witnessed?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really intense.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
no, like I don't know if I witnessed it.
Oh.
Like, I have the memory and it's very vivid, but like
You're not sure.
I'm not sure if it was a real thing. I have a few memories from my childhood that I'm like, did I make this up? Or
was it like that boy sending you a message?
Yeah. Was it like a dream or a vision, or was it something he wanted to show me?
Maybe it was
and
a
like,
parallel life.
maybe I am that little boy.
There's so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And when I had my session with you, though, I think I almost talked about a little boy, and it was that same energy again. I
feel like I vaguely remember
Yeah.
that. Okay. You may have to re-listen to your audio.
Yeah, I do. I have to figure out what's up with him. There might be some context clues in there, but
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many gifts that intuitive people, witchy people can possess, and one of them is like visions, another one is seeing spirits, another one is communicating with spirits, and I don't know. Some people even have the gift and don't really know it.
Right.
Yeah.
It gets developed later.
Mm-hmm.
Children always kind of like will talk about people they see, or they'll mention like relatives that have passed on. I know I used to do that, and I've noticed my sons have both done it. and been like, oh, that's that person over there. And you're like, where?
My son actually, when he was around 6, he would give me issues about going to take a bath, and he would say, I see witches in the window in the bathroom. And I thought, bullshit, you just don't want to go take a shower. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. And he would tell me that all the time. So I took him to this intuitive, and without me saying anything, she looks him dead in the eyes and says, you see people, don't you see? And she explained to him. And here he is, his eyes are like massively big looking at her like. And so anyway, she gave him some stones, and he gave us a little protocol, and then he never saw him again.
Wow.
Yeah, he remembers that to this day, because he's kind of the kind of guy like, I gotta see it to believe it. So I feel like he had some occurrences when he was younger that kind of opened his mind up a little bit. So yeah, he used to see witches.
Wow. I have intuitive dreams sometimes, and sometimes it's like kind of what you were describing, Stephanie, where it's like, I'm not sure if this is deja vu or I dreamed this, like in the present reality. Like I'll have a situation where I'm like, I dreamed this before, or what is this? And I don't know. I've always been a very vivid dreamer, but on the subject of the afterlife, I can remember a few days after my grandfather died, he came to me in a dream, and it was like everything stopped. It was like a white light. It was his face. He was like, you can visit me here in a dream. And I've seen him one other time in a dream, and it was during like a pretty hard time in my life, and it was kind of just like, you have help on the other side.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. Sorry, I just opened up my chapstick and closed it, and it was super loud.
We're learning.
Tuck this back
we're
here.
learning how sound bounces and transfers, and it's all energy.
It's all vibrations.
Yeah. So a lip smack is just a good vibration sent your way.
Yes. Learning new things.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Because you were talking about when you were younger and getting books on like astrology and Wicca. Because I have like my friend who was over, her little sister stopped by and was looking at my bookshelf, and I have obviously all sorts of different books, but books about witchcraft and things of that nature. And she was like, so how long have you been Wiccan? And I was like, I'm not Wiccan. I was like, I've never identified, like, I didn't know they went hand in hand. But like, so do you identify as Wiccan? Do you think it goes hand in hand with witchcraft? Tell me these things,
Well,
Catherine.
first of all, I love being asked if I'm Wiccan. I'm not, but I love that question, because it's usually asked by someone who isn't familiar with the myriad of witchcraft practices or magic practices. I typically, when I say witch or witchy, I am referring to the wide spectrum of magical practices. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct for me to do, but I don't know how else to describe the vast spectrum of magical practices other than witchy. So anyway, someone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I am not Wiccan. When I got that book, I was really into it. I resonated with everything except being in a coven. And because it reminded me too much of systemized, organized religion, and I kind of was at that point in my life where I just wanted to figure it out for myself. A lot of people get into astrology or witchcraft or magic or whatever it might be around the age of 12. Around the age of 12, we have what's called a Jupiter return. The planet Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the zodiac, and when it returns to your natal position around the age of 12, it represents a desire for a new quest to grow, to understand. Jupiter's all about expansion of the mind, gaining a higher understanding, and it is often spiritual or mystical. It depends on how it's placed in someone's chart. For me, it's very prominent. So that is what did it. But a lot of astrologers, they got into astrology when they were 12 also.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so for me, I've always been kind of more solitary and kind of doing things that call to me intuitively. So that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, same for me. I feel like for me, one of the big words that I identify with is being sovereign. And so I'm learning how to just really be an independent thinker, but also be a learner as well.
Yeah.
So like for me, there's just like, I identify a lot with shamanism. That's something that for me just feels very normal, natural, but I wouldn't say I classify myself as that. So for me, for Wiccan, I don't even know a lot about it, honestly. So, yeah.
I don't identify either. I've heard people use that, and it was the first time I heard it, I think, was at like in junior high. Somebody saying they identified, and they were like going through their emo phase and all the black and studded belts and stuff. And so it was like, oh, like that sort of solitary. I thought solitary, you watch things like The Craft and all those movies and you're like, oh yeah, coven. But the idea of a coven didn't exist for me because where I lived was just like heavily Catholic or non-denominational. So
Yeah.
you brought up witchcraft. It was like, nope.
Even though, like, I guess when I say sovereign, there's still a part of me that wants that communal thing too.
Same.
But I feel like I want to be able to flow in and out of it.
Yeah.
Same.
I don't want to have like the rules or guidelines around
Or commitment.
Agreed.
Or like you have to like rush a coven.
Yeah, nah.
Like you're doing hazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I identify, I guess, I identify a lot with Brujería, which is the mix of like espiritismo, or not shamanism. It is shamanism.
Santeria.
And Santeria, Catholicism, where it's, very nature based, but you're also bringing elements of the things like I grew up with. So the Virgin Mary or like rosaries as prayer beads and things like that. I just gravitate towards it because it makes me nostalgic. It makes me like, those are my roots. Like I can't sit here and say like, oh no, like Yoruban, like I didn't really see that. I saw the white cloth, I saw the glasses of water on the table and things like that, but it was much more heavily like the Virgin Mary and Jesus and all the Catholic imagery. I love it. Like I want to fill my house with all the Last Supper paintings and
That's what's up. Yeah, I love it. Cool. So last time we chose some cards from the Dark Goddess Oracle deck. And so we just wanted to follow up on our digging and deep diving with these cards.
we researched. We had homework.
Yes, we did. So
I'll start.
please.
All right. So my goddess was Tiamat, and she was a Babylonian Sumerian goddess. She was like the personification of the sea. She was the goddess of salt water. So very cleansing, the combination of salt, water, cleansing, healing. She was a mother. She got with the god of fresh water, because that makes sense, right? They should have children together. And so they did. His name was Apsu. Now, what did I say earlier?
Asbu.
I like saying Asbu's a good name. Like
I like
that's
Asbu better,
Asbu.
personally, but
it's
whatever.
Apsu, so we'll go with that. He was a god of fresh water, so they had children. He got annoyed because the children were too loud. He was like, these damn kids keeping me awake. I don't know if he was working third shift in heaven or what. He was pissed. So he developed a plan to like murder these children. This is, like you said, Lynette, earlier, very Dateline.
Very Dateline.
The kids find out, like, shit, Dad's trying to kill us. So they like come up with a plan, and so they get to him first. So like, boom, Dad's dead. So the mom, Tiamat, she's kind of like, well, you know, like, I didn't see anything. Just chilling. She's like, well, I have my children. I didn't want them to die. I'm a mother. So boom. Then the kids got older. They were gods and goddesses. They left the nest, the palace, wherever they were. And then she was kind of butthurt because she was like, well, now I'm alone. Like, y'all killed my partner and now I just got to ride solo. So she spent a lot of her last few years lonely and a little upset at her children. So she went through a lot of waves of emotions. So she is a goddess of chaos. And a strong connection to the underworld. She is depicted as a serpent or a dragon.
Ooh.
Yeah. She began as part of the call of Namu, which was a female principle where they focused on watery, creative forces. So they were all about that sort of cleansing, that watery, that heavy, fertility. Their themes were like history, change, spirituality, fertility, birth, and creativity. And she teaches us that she gives birth to order and a new world. So when she gets old, eventually, I think she tries to avenge the death of not Asbu, but Apsu. And the kids find out and they send a god to kill her. It's very messed up family. Like, I feel sorry for everybody involved.
Yeah,
but
it was not a nuclear family.
No, a lot of drama. Like, where was Dr. Phil when you needed him?
Yeah.
But when he killed her, she, like, her top half became the heavens, her bottom half became the earth, her crying eyes became the Tigris and the Euphrates River, all that. So
Wait, how'd she get cut in half?
she got cut in half by a god named Marduk that her children sent because she went a little crazy and she was like, I'm out here widowed.
Freaking out.
Yeah, she was not having a good time.
And so the kids hired a hitman.
They hired a hitman, Marduk, to come
Okay.
get her. Yeah.
Interesting.
This shit is like, it could be a movie.
I'm wondering if there was like some life insurance involved. Like, did
Man,
they have
some
that
money,
back in the day?
yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
I don't know. The underworld, maybe the key to the underworld. I don't know.
Maybe.
But she's supposed to teach us that chaos gives birth to order and a new world, and understand that dark is not evil. That darkness does not equate to evil.
Okay.
And she has that snake symbolism that you were discussing
Yes.
last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That
I
you
felt
resonate
that
with.
energy. Because my Lilith, so then Lilith is the dark goddess, you know, of that little section. What is it? It's like there's nothing there. It's like a void.
Oh, yeah. We'll have to get into the astronomy of Lilith. There's like a few different ones.
Yeah.
But essentially there is a void where the moon kind of wobbles back and forth, and it deals with Lilith for
Okay.
sure. It's
And
like,
my Lilith is in Cancer, so I was like watery.
oh,
Yeah.
there is that
I was
connection.
thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I was meant to find out about her and her tumultuous life.
Yeah, and there's some other things from that story that stuck out to me. So, number one, like, what era is Tiamat from?
She was Sumerian and Babylonian. So
So-
that's like
Super old.
Old.
Like
OG.
primordial god.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was the goddess of the primordial sea is what they called her.
So she was like pre-Enki, pre-Enlil, all that. So she was like the old.
Enki.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that online.
So she was like old as fuck goddess.
Old
So
as hell.
And the Mesopotamian and the Sumerian and the Babylonians, they predated the Greeks. So this story of the children wanting to kill or the father wanting to kill the children, that's classic Saturn right there. Like Saturn eating his children. Like, it's a famous painting as well. And the last one that wait a second. This is, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm an astrologer. I should know this. But, well, yeah, no, it is Saturn eating his children. But it's, anyways, without getting into the nitty gritties of that myth, there is this classic thing where the father is afraid of getting old and his kids being better than him. And this is something that we encounter in day and age. Like, it's depicted on dramas on TV where the dad doesn't want to let his son beat him, because then it means that
he's kind of going downhill from that point.
Exactly.
There will be a new king.
Exactly. So there's that myth there, which probably fed into the Saturn killing his father Uranus, Uranus, and then also Saturn's children killing him. So,
okay.
I'm a mom. Like, I'm troubled. But, like, I have 2 sons, so maybe that's cool. Like, they won't try to kill me because they'll be like, we could just be king and you could just continue to be queen.
You're over here, I'm over here.
Yeah, we're good. All right. I can sleep at night.
For me, I had Morrigan. And in looking at her story, there's a lot that I don't resonate with and some that I do. So, first of all, she is part of Irish mythology. And I guess part of like the Celtic, is it like the Celtic culture? Like, I don't even want to say the wrong thing. Like, is it, they say Celtic studies, basically. And she was considered to be like a sovereign goddess. She was the goddess of war. And she would basically summon or prepare the troops to go to war. And she was said that she could kind of like tip the scales. Like, she could, like, if you work with her, she can help you be victorious. She was also associated with the raven. So in times of war, and, when you have like the bodies or, the raven would come in and kind of clean up. So it's almost like that full circle. And she was in some cases considered to be like a triple goddess. For me, what resonated with me is, for some reason, I have some sort of warrior theme going in some of my research into my past lives. So that for me, that was what stuck out. And I'm wondering why that keeps coming up. Like, for example, right now, I feel like I have the kind of personality where I'm kind of chill and kind of even, but I feel like I may have really, how do I want to put it, kind of ignored that part of me. So I feel like she came to somehow reignite that. So I'm still trying to understand how that plays a part, you know?
Because last time you were saying too, in our first episode, you were saying how you're trying to mediate like the fiery side of you and like the sensitive side of you. So like the healer and the warrior.
Yeah. And again, the sovereign thing, and I'm still learning about that. Sovereignty is really, can you grow your own food? Can you sustain yourself? Can you, with water and solar power, like, can you really just sustain yourself in all aspects of life? I'm obviously not there yet, but I feel like there's a part of me that wants to connect with the land more, wants to be able to just sustain myself more without outside influence. There's just a big draw for me to connect with the land more. And I also know that in one of my past lives, supposedly I was considered to be the equalizer, where she would be the healer, or she would also, if someone needed to be taken out, or if someone was causing havoc, I would take care of them too. So again, when you talked about like that balance, but yeah, So that's Morrigan.
Interesting. It's interesting that card came up too, because I too have like warrior past lives and things like that. And every once in a while I get in like, normally I want to watch like peaceful stuff at the end of my day, but sometimes I get in a mood and I want to watch like some warrior shit. And there's this show on Netflix. I can't for the life of me remember what it's called, but it's basically like empires, and they go through several different empires of like warriors. So there's like the Romans, the Aztecs. They do one from China. I didn't watch that one yet, but they did one on the Celts, like the Celtic tribes. And well, that's how they called it, the Celtic tribes. And yeah, that's how they referred to them. So anyways, they portrayed them as fucking badasses. Like, they were kind of unbeatable. They were really hard to beat for a long time, and then eventually they did get taken down. But there was like one area of France that never was taken down, I guess. Like the Holy Roman Empire was like taking over all of Europe, and that's why like France has its own language and everything. I don't know all the details of that story, but there's something to it. So yeah, but they were badasses.
Okay. Good, cool.
Yeah, and they had a woman who was like leading the troop one day, and she was fierce. They tried to kill her and they couldn't, and then she like came back with a vengeance.
Maybe I should watch some of that.
Yeah. So,
all right.
It's good shit.
What about your goddess?
Okay. So I had Erishkagale, and Erishkagale, her famous story is also Inanna's famous story. So there's a famous story. I should preface by saying that Erishkagale and Inanna, they are Sumerian, and Inanna's Babylonian name is Ishtar. We're going to talk more about her some other time, but I can't talk about Erishkagale without talking about Inanna. So Erishkagale is the older sister of Inanna. This predates ancient Greece. This predates the Bible, kind of. There could be some interweaving because the Bible, like Genesis, goes way, way back, and people change their names from these stories. Anyway, so Erishkagale gets the underworld. Inanna gets like the upper world, like heaven and earth and something like that. So anyways, it was divided and each sibling got a realm, kind of like in the Greek. Hades got the underworld, Poseidon got the ocean, and Zeus got the sky. So something like that happened. And how did Erishkagale get into the underworld? Well, a dragon who was her half brother took her down there.
Fucking half brothers.
So, and this is like kind of close to the Tiamat, because Tiamat had like, she was part dragon or whatever. And these two are kind of close on the timeline.
Yeah.
So there's a connection there. And because also some of these characters in the same family of Inanna and Erishkagale are sons and daughters of Enki and Enlil, like that realm. So we're in the same family tree. So the half-brother Kur takes Erishkagale down to the underworld. And she's like, help me. You guys got to help me, to the gods. And they're like, sorry, once you're in the underworld, like, you're screwed. Nobody gets out of the underworld. Like, you're fucked. So she's down there and she's just like, okay, got to be a bad bitch now. But, like, she's a dark goddess because if you think about that, like, I'm in peril. No one, my family isn't rescuing me. Do they even give a shit about me? They're gods. Can't they do something? And now I'm just like stuck in this hell realm. So the next part of the story, this is a different story. Inanna has like, one of Inanna's famous stories is her descent into the underworld because she is queen of heaven, supposedly. And she starts getting power hungry. Like, what else can I rule? I'm a sexual badass, because she's running sex temples and taking people's energy and feeling herself, and she's feeling powerful. And so she's like, I'm going to take the underworld. So she goes down. There's 7 gates of hell. Maybe that's where that comes from. And at each gate, Inanna has to strip down an article of clothing.
Oh.
Yeah. So by the time she gets to Erishkagale, her sister, she's naked. She's raw. And I think there's so much symbolism here, because when you go to the underworld, figuratively, like, or literally, you have nothing. And this reminds me of the Pluto transit in astrology. When you have a Pluto transit in a strong part of your chart, you're going down to the bare bones. You're taking a raw look at yourself, and you're totally vulnerable. And in the case of the Pluto transit, it's about going down to the basics and kind of getting your power back. It's like shedding your skin.
Mm-hmm.
To say it simply, it's a lot more complicated. But anyway, so Inanna is presenting herself naked to her older sister, and there are 7 guardians of each gate, and they are said to be of the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are like the old gods. They're sent to the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
So they're judging her. So here's some themes of like ancient Egypt too, like in the underworld, like Ma'at, like the judgment. And Inanna gets convicted of hubris.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
It's like pride. It's like,
Oh, okay.
you think
Man,
you're
I'm hubris as fuck.
like, your shit don't stink. Like, hubris. Like, I'm a bad bitch. No one can beat me. And so she gets convicted, and she gets killed on the spot, and they hang her body on a meat hook.
What?
Yeah. So Inanna's dead right now. Well, the gods freak out, and they're like, can we save her? And Enki takes pity on the story, and they're like, let's go save her.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine being a Erishkagale and being like, y'all bitches couldn't save me, but you're gonna come save her.
Right.
So she's like the favorite sister and the second sister. And this is another thing that gets repeated in mythology over and over again, where like the second sibling is the favorite.
Really?
Yeah, it happened in Cain and Abel, Ishmael and Isaac, Esau and Jacob. Like, it happens in all the stories. So anyways, Inanna gets taken out, brought back to life, but then but then like her minions from hell come up there, and they're like, no, someone has to take her place. So her husband, it's not really her husband. Inanna has like no official husband. She just like has some main dudes that she fucks. And then she like has a bunch of other people that she fucks. But her main fuck buddy gets sent down to take her place. And then he's down there in peril. So then his sister, her name is something crazy. It is Gestinana. And that kind of sounds like gestation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she says, I'm going to take your place, brother, for half of the year. So he's up there half the year. She's down there half the year. Gestinana is the Sumerian goddess of fertility and agriculture. So this is the very first that I've seen of the season myths that we see with like Demeter and Persephone. And if you think about the original abduction of Erishkagale into the underworld, it's just like Persephone. So my mind is blown reading this. But I'm also like, I feel you, Erishkagale. Like, I'd be fucking pissed too.
I'd be pissed.
I'm the older sister,
But-
so I'd be screwed.
Yeah.
Me too.
I'm the younger sister of me and my
Oh, my
sister,
goodness.
so
You're the favorite.
I'm the favorite.
So I feel like I didn't find a detailed story like that. Did I not dig enough? Like, I feel like the information you brought forward was like a full story. Like, I don't know if maybe I didn't do enough digging.
Well, this is like a story that was like recorded on a tablet. So it's like not just like passed down myth and story.
Yeah.
And there's like one Erishkagale. So
Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
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 And maybe it being so tied to the other, like, it seems like the OG origin myth.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, for like spring, like you were saying, Persephone and Demeter and things like that. So maybe that's why it's like And I've heard that story. Like in other myths or fairy tales or stories and things like that. So it seems like.
And the story also kind of says that, like, you know, you can die and be reborn in one lifetime, you know, and but first you have to like be raw and willing to go there, willing to go there,
which is a theme that we're seeing, right, when we talk about the different goddesses, like that time where they feel like maybe they weren't going to make it, or there was this prolonged time of suffering. So this theme, it's a theme that we're seeing, and it's something that we're learning from, that we can look at our lives and kind of see certain parallels. And it kind of, it gives me a little bit of hope, because it helps us understand our own plight, the things that we go through too, you know what I mean? But their stories are so fascinating, because it's just so, it's dramatic. And it's like, we may have some emotional suffering, but they had some like physical, like hardcore real suffering.
They were being cut in half and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
for real.
Yeah. So wait, was it Inanna's like main side piece that went? Oh,
yeah.
So would he be like hashtag best side piece ever? Because he's like, well, half the year I'll do your prison sentence. Like, that's ride or die.
That is ride or die.
Like
and then his sister was like, I'm not let you go. I'm not gonna let you go out like that. Like, I'll do it too. And
yeah, it's a good sister and a good side piece.
Yeah. Wow. I need them on my team.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
That's the kind of fam you need.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And there was one other story linked to Erishkagale that I thought was fascinating. So she had a fourth consort. I don't know about the first three. She probably like killed them, because this fourth guy, Nurgle,
nothing like the name Nurgle.
Nurgle. So there was like a party the gods were having, and Erishkagale was feeling too fancy to go. She's like, nah, I can't attend. So Nurgle, you go and give everyone my kind regards. And so he enters, and everyone stands out of honor for her, except this one dude who's like the god of war. And Erishkagale finds out, and she's pissed. She's like, bring his ass down here so I can kill him. And the gods are like, okay, we'll take him to you. But they're like, we're like, sorry, bro. All right, we're going to give you 14 demons to protect you, though, while you go through the gates of hell. So he's got it all planned out. He's like, I'm going to have demons guard the gates of hell so I can get in and get out. And then he, hold on, I should probably jiggle that.
Jiggle it.
Yeah, just make sure we're still recording.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, anyways, he gets down there, and she's like gonna kill him, and then he overpowers her, and as he's about to decapitate her with an axe, she's like, no, have mercy on me, I'll share my power with you, you can rule hell with me. And he's like, all right, that's what's up, that sounds good.
Give him half, and he's like, all right, cool, I'm in.
So on one hand, there's like this moral of the story where, so he ends up spending half the year in the underworld and half the year not in the underworld, which is the moral of this myth is that war is something that we can never fully get rid of as humans, which I thought was like fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of it, it made me feel like, have you ever, like, the archetype of the dark goddess, going back to her, like almost like fucking your enemy?
Oh, yeah. I've definitely fucked the enemy before.
Me too.
Or I fucked the enemy's boyfriend. Just to make a point.
To be more specific.
Yeah, there's many ways to fuck the enemy.
Yeah. Wow. That was that whole, like, sexist power thing. So.
Yeah. So I thought, like, I don't know, that was kind of freaky of her. Be like, you're like almost at my neck, like choking me.
She was into some shit, man. She was into some dark shit.
I mean, if you're at that point, you got to just go for whatever you think is going to work, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
the beauty of being a woman, because men are so dumb. You're like, I'll give you half. I'll give you half this, that, all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like, sweet, cool. I get to rule hell. It's dope. Can't wait to put in my Instagram bio.
Yeah. Co-ruler of hell.
And this girl's like, oh my God, are you really the co-ruler of hell?
Oh my God.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna pick more cards for the dark goddesses, and we're gonna come back in another episode talking about them. But I just kind of want to touch on this archetype a little bit more, like the archetype of the dark goddess. Like, what do these goddesses that we connected with, what do they bring to the table? How do they connect with like the overarching archetype?
I feel like right now, I think that there's so much tension in between the sexes. And I think that we're learning how to use, we talk about this, we're learning how to use that side of us that maybe is considered to be evil or dark. I think that I'm not sure if playing quote unquote fair has gotten us to where we need to be. I am all about awareness and doing things as lovingly and as with wisdom as possible. I didn't say that right, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm all about that, but it just makes me think about that. Like, where do we need to color outside of the lines? Where do we need to adapt some different practices? And I think about, like, let's think about who's successful, like in business, or like who is leading our country. Like, some of the people that are deemed to be successful, are they being nice and polite and loving? Now, I'm not saying we need to go there all the way to where we're out of balance and we're just in chaos. But again, I'm just saying, I think it's just about having that conversation and thinking about that. Where do we need to integrate some of those, what is deemed to be dark, whether that's in the bedroom where we're just more primal and sexual and wild, where do those attributes, is that, if that is even the right way to say it, like, where do these things belong?
Yeah. Like, do they belong at work? Like, you see fierce, like, powerful business women, and you're like, they took some of that dark goddess energy and they put it into like a practical use, maybe, like their shadow self comes out in like board meetings or whatever, project meetings and things like that. And they're like, no, we're going to do it this fucking way.
Yeah.
Or you're going to come to the underworld with me.
Yeah. I think, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
I think like dark is power. If you think about the dark arts, like occult literally means hidden. If you think about like the upper echelons of society, like the hidden shadow governments and the shadowy business practices of the successful elite, like, I don't know. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm not saying right or wrong here. I'm just observing that, even in the dark goddess energy, like where she's chaotic and she's emotional and like Kali, like she's destroying and birthing at the same time. Like, that is pure power.
Even if you think about, I always like to talk about like plant medicine. Like, there was this example of this gentleman who had cancer, right? And when he was in his psychedelic experience, he felt like he was being beaten. And I mean, just beaten to death. And he realized that that was his cancer he was fighting. So why is it that these substances in nature can teach through very harsh practices? They teach you through pain sometimes, or life can teach you through pain. So I think that as a human, sometimes we think, oh, that's good, that's bad. But when we look at some of the things that are organic, and again, in nature, they don't always teach through loving kindness. Sometimes they trick you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they put you through hell. And sometimes I feel like they look at the long haul. What are we getting out of this? So we may need to do some things in the interim to get to this point. And we may look at that as being, again, wrong. But I just think I think as a society, we need to look at that a little bit more. So as an example, like, women like us, right? We're very progressive in our thinking. We're loving. We want people to live better, right? So maybe we need to be a little bit more cutthroat. Maybe we need to be the ones that are leading. And I don't know if me being nice and kind, I don't know if I'm going to be at the point where I'm in a position of power to make those types of, make that impact.
Right. Like you may need to be cutthroat to get the attention and respect almost. And then you can be however, then you can do the good things that you actually want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think knowing like when and who deserves what, like strengthening your skill set of reading people's character and knowing like who's here for you, who's not, and like gathering those people that are there for you, like your community, your friends, like, I consider the two of you in that spectrum. Like you get my good, you get my light, you get my love. But people who are trying to say like, come for us or come for the people in my community, then like, no, you're going to get manipulation. You're going to get, my anger, my force, my most shadow self. But that can also be beneficial for me and, the people I'm trying to help.
Yeah, I think that's like a protective, mother archetype energy too. Like,
yeah, if you mess with my kids, you're going to get the heat.
Yeah. Protect my own first.
Yeah, always. I mean, I feel like that goes into other spectrums as well. Like now, we see people being much more protective over their artistic community, their spiritual community, even down to like race, the people who live on your block, people in your own culture. It's like we all are just clinging tight to those safety nets because the world that we're living in right now is trying to separate us all, like literally separate us all.
And it's tricky because I can look at, like, as an example, I feel like sometimes as women, we could be really hard on men. I feel sometimes they have their own pain. They have their own ways that they need healing. And I sometimes feel like we generalize. Or we could look at a white man and think, oh, he must have, he has everything because he's a white male. So again, it's so tricky because I do feel like I sometimes look at things from a larger perspective and understanding that most of these people don't even know that they're acting a certain way because they just grew up with a sense of entitlement. And again, I'm not saying it's right, but they have no other perspective. They this is how they were brought up. This is how they are. And sometimes it's hard for them to understand their behavior and how they're impacting other people. So it's so tricky. I just think it's things that we need to think about. We need to figure that out for ourselves. Like you were saying, where do I need to be more kind and loving? Where do I need to put my foot down? Where do I need to be more aggressive?
Yeah. Lately, I've been grappling with a lot of different issues around, what is the right way to look at this? What is the right action to take? And what I keep coming back to is that there often is no right or wrong. There's so many different perspectives and ways to look and judge something. But ultimately, you just have to go with what feels right for you. And what feels right for you may not be absolute truth.
True.
It might just be your truth. So,
yeah. I think that we're just all really trying to form our own opinions instead of, I feel like in the past and other generations, I just feel like people just kept repeating. It was like you're born, you do this, you die. Like
that mass mentality.
Yeah. Well, I feel like now we're really thinking it through. What do I want to carry on from my ancestors, from my family, from my culture? What do I want to discard? That's bullshit. I don't want to do that anymore. So I just feel like it's awesome that we're doing that we're thinking it through.
Yeah. And actually on that subject, I've been hearing this come up a lot. The subject of lineage and, carrying on ancestral karma. I know the three of us have talked about it, but I've just been hearing it talked about a lot in the collective. And I actually wrote a pretty lengthy article titled Lineage and Legacy for an astrological journal. And I would love to talk deeper about ancestral healing and lineage. And it's a hot topic right now. The North Node is in the sign of Cancer. The eclipses are happening here. I'd love to talk deeper about it sometime.
I'd love that.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of healing that needs to take place with like ancestral trauma and old wounds and things like that, especially with the political climate we're in. It's like these ideas and these stereotypes stem from the, you know, kind of like glamorization of different traumas and different techniques of survival. And yeah, like I think what our generation is doing more so is like opening the box and like, okay, like you said, like what do I carry on? What do I pass on to my kids? What do I say like, no, this stops here. We're not doing this any longer. And I think that's essential for our generation to move forward, because I sort of feel like we're the ones that are taking the brunt of everything right now. Like we may never see our work come to fruition, but our children will hopefully feel the effects of it and be able to feel the change that we had to fight for.
Yeah, I mean, we're the Pluto and Scorpio generation.
Revolutionaries.
Yeah, we are. And we're unafraid to talk about shit that our previous generations kind of swept under the rug. Like, we're pulling it all out. And everyone's like, I don't want to look at it. Like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
Put it back.
We don't talk about
we're
that.
like, no, it needs to be talked about.
Well, I'm Pluto and Libra, so I don't know what do you have to say about that as the astrologer here.
Well, Pluto and Libra, your generation actually like destroyed, like Pluto is destroy and rebirth, and Pluto and Libra generation is known for partially destroying like the marriage.
I was gonna say the relationship.
Yeah,
the
and
structure.
Yeah.
But it was also going on around the time that you were born too. So it was basically like, you know, divorces are really common and that kind of thing.
So yeah, like you're saying, Pluto and Scorpio, where it's like now everyone's talking about the things that no one wanted to talk about. And I've heard people like when they reference Scorpio, it's like they point something out, but it's not so gentle. It's like they're going right for it.
Or
It's
they say
intense.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either I say nothing or I sting you while staring you in the eyes. But yeah, Pluto and Libra was also like, you know, let's have thruples instead of just couples. And, you know, and Pluto and Scorpio gets down on that too, because
Yeah.
we just are
Break
willing
down construction and
we're breaking down like gender and sexuality. And Pluto, when Pluto was in Scorpio, there was the AIDS epidemic.
and the Berlin Wall came down.
Yeah. Yeah, that was also Saturn and Capricorn too. So like Saturn deals with walls. So Saturn's actually in Capricorn right now. And we're talking about this Mexico wall. That's the issue now.
Okay.
Yeah. So walls can go down and come up. It's like, you know, walls are here. Walls are something that protect, like in the home, but they can also be, you know, like repressive, you know, and it's fear. It deals with fear and safety, and it's on a spectrum. I will say that I don't agree with this wall idea whatsoever, but, you know, as an astrologer, I look at what's going on and read it. But anyways, so it's a subject of fear and safety, depending on how you're looking at it. Yeah, walls can be protective, but also repressive and limiting. So, and that works too in our hearts, you know. It's good to have healthy boundaries around like who you let in. But if you're too closed off, you can't have love.
Right.
So Saturn is also in sextile to Neptune right now. Neptune's all about compassion and wanting to love everybody. And so it's trying to find that balance on a personal and collective level. But it's easier to have sovereignty as an individual in a group, especially like on a global level. Like, it just takes a little bit more work.
It seems insane we're talking about a wall. Like, I don't follow politics a lot, so I don't have anything intelligent to say about it, but it just seems really ridiculous that we're even talking about this in 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
it just, I mean,
That,
okay.
Yeah. It's like this idea that they give you, like, people are just running over this border. It's like, no, people are flying into this country because
Yeah.
it's fucking 2019.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this isn't westward expansion.
No.
And also, that land is Mexico.
Yeah.
That land was always originally Mexico.
Yeah. The whole Southwest.
Ugh.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need another Fernet toddy if we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah. We're getting dark goddess over here. We're getting pissed.
I'm getting pissed. We're trampling walls.
Yeah. Fuck that shit.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah. But yeah, Pluto in Scorpio is, we want to talk about that stuff. We want to dissect it, talk about it, bring it out in the open, and expose the things that are not healthy in our society, like systematic oppression of peoples. We want to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to talk about that. My partner sometimes is like, does everything have to be like a revolution? And I was like, yeah.
Yes.
We're
Like,
here. We're here.
Viva la revolucion.
Yeah, everything. There was one morning I wanted to talk about this book I was reading. It was called The King Kong Theory by Virginie. I'm going to mess up her last name because it's French. Dipetes or something like that. I'm sorry. I apologize. Not like she's going to listen to this, but still, I'm sorry. She wrote this book, The King Kong Theory. It's talking about rape culture. It has some really great points. Highly recommend. But I was trying to discuss it with my partner, and like we were just brushing our teeth, and he was like, "I love you, but can we not like talk about rape first
like
thing in the morning?"
7:50 in the
Yeah, and I was like, oh, "I'm sorry. Like, when is it appropriate? Over tea, like high noon tea?"
The suppression of the patriarchy.
Yeah, like anytime's a good time. I'm just saying, don't let it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
We're not afraid to talk
No.
about it.
That's that dark goddess. She's like, no, we need to talk about this right now.
Right.
Every second we wait is,
Yeah, if it
nothing's
were-
being done.
If we were to be convenient and pleasant, we would just be like Eve,
Yeah.
like not making a fuss.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
Just some dude telling you came out of his rib, and you're like, shut the fuck up. Like, Adam, you're drunk. Go home.
That's basically saying like you're my property.
Yeah. Adam.
Fucking Adam.
Fucking Adam.
He's such a dick.
Yeah, he's such a dick.
Does every episode resort back to fuck Adam? He's a dick.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't know what he was missing.
I was just saying what Lilith said. I was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
being a voice for her.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, do we have anything else we want to bring up before we wrap up this episode?
Well, when you talked about the theme of the Dark Goddess, that's what I think we can plug our retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we want to do is we want to continue this type of conversation, right? We want to, with the women that come to the retreat, we're going to do some of this deep diving around us individually, around where we can bring more of ourselves online, where we can look at ourselves and say, where am I playing small? Where am I leaving my power off the table?
Mm-hmm.
Where am I leaving my gifts off the table? So this is about us doing it individually, coming together with other women and doing it, and then just creating that ripple effect. So it's like we want to just have an impact on our little pocket,
Mm-hmm.
our little community, and just do our part. And I just feel like a lot of women are interested in this stuff because they have, like, I remember we were talking about her Lilith placement, and her Lilith placement, I believe, was in Pisces, and it was around healing her partner via sexuality. And she's like, you know what? I never had like someone explain that to me, but I've always done that. And I felt like maybe it wasn't right. I felt like maybe, I don't know, whatever her reasons were, she didn't go into it. But the point is that why? Like, it's working for them. It's beautiful. That's how she, interacts with her partner, and she brings him healing in a certain way. And so just having that conversation and having that education around that just validated something that she did naturally but thought it was wrong because of her other teachings in her whatever religion or community. So this is just about sometimes just offering validation to the things that we already know, just innately are in us that we do, but maybe we are shamed. So yeah, I'm just super pumped about doing this and having other women exploring and getting the validation that they may need, or discovering something that they didn't know.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Also, I think we want to open it up too. It's like, if you're also like a femme identifying person who is just interested in more learning about the female archetype and these stories and these origin myths and how all of this ties into the day-to-day and the things you deal with, has somebody exhibiting highly feminine energy to anybody, like, it's always seen as bad.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be too feminine, you can't be too girly. Like, that's people get like repulsed by it. Like, it's too much. But male energy, where it's always like, oh, look at that, so much so much testosterone, and everybody makes a joke, and it's like, yay, they get a fucking ticker tape parade.
Yeah, it's more celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we want to celebrate femininity. We want to celebrate the multidimensionality of our femininity, especially the parts that society tells us are bad or inconvenient or that should be turned down too much. Yeah. So, we want to, part of celebrating the dark goddess is celebrating our sexuality, celebrating our tumultuous emotions that come out at times, and just honoring that that's part of our gift, of our gift of chaos and rebirth, and it's our intuitive magic as well. So as women, so we want to celebrate that. And yeah, we're holding an event March 23rd. It's a Saturday. If you're in the Cleveland area and you want to spend the day with us diving deep into this dark goddess archetype, we've got a full day lined up. We've got yoga, we've got a writing workshop, we've got astrology, we've got food, we've got tarot, we've got, what else?
Ceremony, ritual. Yeah. This is really about, we're not telling anyone how to express their individuality.
No.
We're just providing information, and people can use it however they want to. If someone wants to be super submissive and not be wild sexually, do that. Like, whatever, and to your point, when we talk about this, we're not talking about gender necessarily. We're talking about the archetypes. We're talking about the energy. So, I met someone, a week or two ago he's a guy, he's super into the goddess, the dark goddess. Like, it doesn't have to be that it's just women.
Well, even if you're a cis male and you're heterosexual, like, you have a feminine, a yin side. Like, everyone has a yin and yang. Everyone has feminine, masculine, if you want to call it, like, on the binary spectrum. Like, we all have that spectrum in us somewhere, and where we identify, but we all have that spectrum within us. And I think even men could benefit from working with their dark goddess, because, for example, we have a problem in our society where men don't cry, or they're told to be tough, or like stuff it down. And I think that they could benefit from letting that tornado come out once in a while.
Healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah. Not like beat your woman kind of way.
Yeah.
But.
And Just as a side note, I would love to know if any men are listening or watching, why is it that in this community, really men don't participate? They don't come to the gatherings. They don't go to workshops or retreats.
Oh my gosh.
Pero why? Like, I don't know.
Pero why?
Yeah. There's a podcast I listened to, and they just talked about this subject. And one of the big things that stuck out was, well, I should reference it. It's the astrology podcast. They were talking with Lisa Ardere, and they were talking about it was Chris Brennan and Lisa Ardere, and they were talking about why do women tend to gravitate more towards astrology. And one of the things that they mentioned was that if you're like cis hetero male, and then for the most part, maybe you haven't had a lot of experiences that weren't validated. So those of us who have had a lot of experiences that were very real to us that weren't validated by the vast collective, then we go seeking, and we're more seeking. So that was like sense. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see more men at some of the events I go to and some of the events that we facilitate.
Yeah.
I think it'd be amazing to have that energy, that perspective. So anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, we would love to get together in person. So we're doing that. Do you guys have any other things that you have going on?
I have March 1st through the 3rd. It's a weekend workshop called Transcending Your Trauma.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. But anyway, looking forward to that. It's going to be a weekend filled with different modalities, psychedelic breath work, psychopomp. It's like basically like hypnosis, but you're acting things out to go back to certain traumatic experiences and being able to kind of rework it. Meditation, aromatherapy, all of that. And then on March 9th, I have a group quantum healing with Pachamama with Raven Carter at Studio Cleveland. We'll be doing a group quantum healing, and we'll also be, I'm inviting any artists, singers, dancers, poets. We're going to be doing basically just an offering back to Pachamama, which is the Earth Mother Gaia. So we're going to be connecting with her, and also through song and dance.
Sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about you, Stephanie?
I'm reading tarot on Tuesday the 19th at Quintana's, which is a barber shop and spa, and then upstairs, it's like an older house, there's a speakeasy. You have to like walk through a bookcase, and it's really dope. The vibes are dope. But I'm just reading tarot there from 6:30 to 8:30. You have to get tickets ahead of time, and they tend to sell out fast. But if you look up Quintana's,
with a Q, right?
With a Q, Quintana's. On Facebook, they have the link to get tickets, but it's $15. You get a complimentary cocktail and a 15-minute reading with me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very
What about
awesome.
you, Catherine?
So I have a lot of writing projects I'm working on, but not as much like opportunities to connect. The next thing I have coming up is our workshop, our event. It is the Wild Awakening Retreat. Again, March 23rd. Come spend the day with us. It's going to be fun. And other than that, I am going to be teaching astrology classes in the Cleveland area in April. We haven't firmed up the details yet, but it's going to be at Coven, the wood shop in Lakewood. So if anyone's interested, you can email me. I'm at catherineurban.com. So you can find me there, and I'll put you on the wait list.
I want to get on this list.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah, and I'm also interested if anyone has any ideas, like they want us to talk about something, or they, have any just any community things they want to talk about, because we're going to be at one point or another inviting some people on with us, right?
Yeah.
In time, yeah.
Yeah. So just, we welcome them to reach out, and when the time is right, we'll do that. So I would love to get more feedback on the people that are listening.
Please.
What do they think? What type of stuff they'd like us to talk about? So
Yeah.
All right. So that concludes the second episode of The Fallen Fruit.
Second.
Oh, did I say first?
No, I just wanted to reiterate. Second episode.
The second episode.
Number 2.
So we will see you next time. Thank you for coming to our treehouse.
peace.